Welcome back to another Mast Cell 360 live show. I'm Jamie Fries-Miller, your host and health coach here at Mast Cell 360. Whether you're joining us live right now or catching the replay later, we're so glad to have you with us today. These lives are all about empowering you on your mast cell journey with practical insights, expert guidance, and the support of our amazing community. Today's show is about histamine-lowering and low-histamine probiotics. I'll be joined shortly by our lead practitioners, Kimberly Quirk and Alex Bingham. All right, quick disclaimers before we get in. This presentation is for informational and educational purposes. It is not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent illness, so please be sure to discuss any health recommendations with your healthcare provider. And just a reminder that some of the links shared during this presentation or on our website are affiliate links, which means Mast Cell 360 may take a very small commission if you purchase through us. We only recommend products that we love, use personally, or use in the Mast Cell 360 clinic. I see some people joining us now. Feel free to drop in the comments where you guys are tuning in from. And because you're here live with us, you are some of the first people to hear some amazing announcements that we have coming up. Okay, so exciting announcements. Mast Cell 360 is now on Substack. So this is kind of, if you're not familiar with Substack, it is one platform that's going to kind of help you organize all of our resources. So you can access our recipes, our blog posts, some of the lives, and soon we'll probably also be streaming this live over there as well. So really one place. You don't have to go to Facebook, you don't have to go to YouTube, you don't have to go to our website anymore. It's going to kind of centralize everything for you. And we have a few different tiers of ways that you can interact with us. There will be a free subscription, so there's no need to financially commit. You'll be able to connect with other people on the same journey, so it's actually contributing to that community aspect that you guys have been craving so much. You'll get access to all of our videos, like I said earlier. Our Mast Cell 360 newsletter that comes into your inbox on Mondays will be there as well. And our emails will be coming from Substack tier, which will be about $7 a month. Or if you subscribe for the whole days with our practitioners, it will also give you additional weekly newsletters written by our practitioners with additional insights and tips on your healing journey. And you'll get access to our entire video library. And the third option will be an MCAS founding member. So you'll get a 10% discount on all courses, supplements, and your strategy session. If you haven't done a strategy session yet, you can get a discount on that as well. You'll get early access to any new programs or courses, like our group coaching program that we did last a little while ago. We hope to do one of those again. You'll be one of the first people to know, and we suspect that those will fill up quickly. So it's kind of an opportunity to get the inside scoop a little bit earlier. And you'll also have an option to pay it forward when you sign up. There's a standard price that you'll see, but you can include more if you would like to contribute to the Pay It Forward program, which helps support others with MCAS in receiving services and gifting subscriptions. Okay, so that was a big announcement. If you are not on our email list yet, that this might be the first time you're hearing about it. So you can find us over at mastcell360.substack.com. So be sure to go check that out. Another update is that we do have some openings in the clinic for November and December. It typically slows down at this time of year. We totally get it. People are kind of gearing up for the holidays, maybe not really thinking about, your own health journey as much. And I just want to say that clinically, we see a huge uptick in people requesting appointments in January, probably because they kind of let themselves slide back. Their health takes the back burner. So this is just a gentle reminder that your health should still be a priority and that our clinic can help you work on those stabilization pieces going into the holiday season. So if you're already a Mast Cell 360 client, just reach out to our client managers and client care coordinators to get yourself scheduled if you'd like to book in November or December. Or if you're a new client, you can find us at mastcell360.com/application for information on our different tiers of how to work with us. And then just a quick little teaser, we do have our holiday gift guide coming out soon. It's going to include some special offers for our community. And we always like to find you deals on products that we trust when we can. So just a little heads up that is coming soon. Keep an eye out for it. Okay, so let me bring our lead practitioners, Kimberly and Alex, up to the stage. Today, we are going to be talking about why many probiotics trigger mast cells or raise histamine levels, what to look for or avoid when choosing a probiotic if you have MCAS or histamine intolerance, how to start slowly to reduce flare-ups, because even, there's this big misconception about probiotics that all probiotics are good and more is better sometimes. So we're going to be kind of busting some of those myths for the MCAS community specifically. When we often suggest probiotics in our clinic, and then what are our clinic's favorite probiotics. And then real quick, before we get going and I turn this over to the lead practitioners, I just want to give a huge shout out to our other health coach here at Mast Cell 360, Cam, who does an amazing job behind the scenes putting in a huge amount of effort for this presentation and putting the slides together today. So thank you so much, Cam. Okay, let's see. I'm going to kick it off to Alex to start. Alex, what are probiotics?
Yeah, hello, everyone. Well, probiotics are live organisms that you can introduce into your body. They can be bacteria, they can be beneficial yeast, they can help to replenish the good gut bacteria and outcompete the bad bacteria and any fungi that you might have, like Candida, Aspergillus, Fusarium. You can look at the post that we have down at the bottom to get more information. But just as a little background, you have like 3 or 4 pounds of these germs in your digestive tract, and there are trillions and trillions, actually 10 times as many germs as there are cells in your body. And they are 1,000 or more different species, and they're very metabolically active. They're making a lot of nutrients, they're breaking down food, and they're doing a lot of good things for you. But sometimes our microbiome gets out of balance. Next slide. And this can happen from having a stomach flu or having food allergies, getting food poisoning, medications, stress. So many different things can alter your microbiome. Taking probiotics can help to rebalance things. Some of them have mast cell supporting properties. They can lower histamine levels. They can lower inflammation. They can help to improve your immune system. They can even bind up mold toxins at times. They can balance the microbiome. They can promote good digestion. They can improve and actually create nutrients that then can be absorbed. And they are connected to your brain and can support emotional and brain health. Next slide. They've also been shown to help with things like leaky gut, which is an endpoint of many different processes. Skin conditions like eczema, acne, rosacea, mood regulation. They actually help to produce a lot of vitamins and neurotransmitters like your B vitamins, vitamin K, enzymes, short chain fatty acids, serotonin, melatonin, GABA, dopamine. So it's an incredibly active area, and it's like a whole organ system. While probiotics can be helpful, it's also important to work on improving the terrain. In other words, your overall gut health at the same time. And this can involve improving your microbiome balance, helping good bacteria to thrive, forming healthy gut bug colonies that can feed each other and produce nutrients for you, lower inflammation, stabilize your gut health, and more. Without the good terrain, the probiotics may simply pass through without doing very much. Next. They can come as supplements or in foods. And things like fermented foods and popular supplements are often made using high histamine probiotics like Lactobacillus casei or Lactobacillus bulgaricus. And just as a side note, when I started doing functional medicine back in the 90s, probiotic that had like 5 million colony-forming units was considered a decent probiotic. Well, now we have them that have 500 billion colony-forming units. And now that we understand some of these species are very active, and they could be harmful if you have too much, and they can be really helpful. So they're not always just a always positive type of thing. And then there are other probiotics that or species that one uses that aren't high in histamine, like Bacillus coagulans. So learn the histamine raising and histamine lowering probiotics so that you are helping yourself and not setting yourself back. Next. Jamie, you're muted.
Sorry. Just to reiterate that people can find those histamine raising ones and histamine lowering ones in that blog post that Zach has shared in the comments below. So mastcell360.com/probiotics. You can click it, find it in the comments and click it if you're on Facebook. I don't believe you see the live comments on the replays on YouTube. So just a note there, guys. But you can find it on our website by searching probiotics. And, just educate yourself on what are the ones that are raising and what are the ones that are lowering. So if you're having a high histamine problem, maybe you don't want to, ingest a lot of the higher histamine ones. Okay, let me get that for you. Oh, so here we go.
So
and you guys,
some of the common. So as Jamie was saying, some of these probiotics are actually high histamine, and they can be found in food. They can be found in supplements, things like Lactobacillus helveticus, Streptococcus thermophilus, Bacillus licheniformis, Lactobacillus casei, and Lactobacillus delbrueckii. And you may see that Lactobacillus delbrueckii listed as Lactobacillus delbrueckii subspecies bulgaricus, sometimes just as Lactobacillus bulgaricus, which is a subspecies of Lactobacillus delbrueckii. And so these basically can cause histamine problems, and it can help the mast cells to release some of their inflammatory compounds. So initially, I would say that you're looking to remove these and prevent taking these in any probiotics that you are looking at. Next. Here are some of the strains that will lower histamine levels, and a lot of these are Bifidobacterium. There's the Bifidum, which can suppress allergic symptoms and inflammation. There's the Breve, which supports suppressing histamine. The Infantis, which suppresses the histamine and also has anti-inflammatory properties. The Longum suppresses histamine. The Gasseri supports the immune system and can be used it's used sometimes in H. pylori and other conditions. The Plantarum supports reducing histamine. The Rhamnosus supports histamine, and the subspecies Rhamnosus GG actually can help to bind up mold toxins. We use it a lot in the clinic. And then you've got your Salvarius, which can help to support Th1 and Th2 balancing. Next. What you're looking for are low histamine and or histamine lowering probiotics. I think that we like to start with single strain products, and that's because many of our clients are very sensitive, and the more different strains or the more fillers or the more different supplements you have in a particular product, the more likely it is that product will cause a sensitivity reaction. And some of the fillers, additives that we'd like to avoid would be maltodextrin, soy, and the titanium and silicone dioxides. Next. The next thing is you need to be able to make sure that that probiotic is going to get to your intestines. And this is where the spore-based versus the non-spore-based probiotics have an advantage. So the non-spore-based probiotics are like your Lactobacilli, your Bifidus, and your more bacterial strains that are related. And your spore-based ones oftentimes are your Bacillus species. And these are oftentimes, sometimes they're not even native to our microbiome. But examples would be Bacillus coagulans and Bacillus subtilis. You can get delayed release capsules for some of these non-spore-based probiotics, and you look for names like hypermellose and hydroxypropyl methylcellulose as capsule products that may lead for delayed emptying, and they should be advertising that on the bottle or the box to let you know that's available, which allows the contents to weather the storm of going through the stomach mostly. Next.
Thank you, Alex, for that big overview. One of the things that we see commonly in the clinic is that gut dysbiosis, right? So whether it's too much of even good bacteria, right, that can still cause symptoms. And so one of the things that we see commonly in the clinic is SIBO. And so I want to pass it over to Kimberly to kind of talk about this probiotics and SIBO specifically, because we have a lot of clients presenting with SIBO-like symptoms.
Yeah, and it's so common in clinic to have SIBO, just because we're detoxing through our gut, right? And usually most of us doing a mold detox, so we get some imbalances, or there could be some motility issues causing some of those SIBO issues and things to overgrow in the small intestine. It also can be SIFO, right? So the fungal overgrowth as well, but it's just telling us there's some real big imbalances going on in the gut. So in general, we have found that the ones that worsen SIBO symptoms are the Lactobacillus probiotics, but also the Bifido can also worsen it. So we don't usually start with probiotics for most people. We need to get to a place where we're able to, change over the train a little bit. But we do generally see people with SIBO do much better with some of the spore-based probiotics we were talking about. And then Saccharomyces boulardii as well, which is actually not a biotic. It's a pro yeast. It's a healthy yeast, and some people do well with it, some don't. Depends on your sensitivity to the yeast, but it is like a good yeast that tends to crowd out the bad yeast, and it can be really super helpful for especially like candida and some of those imbalances. So how do we start a probiotic? Yep.
Go ahead. I was going to throw up a question. Sally's saying, I don't do any probiotics, right? Should I, right? So how would you start? That's what I was going to prompt you. How do you start a probiotic?
So it depends on who you are, where you are in your journey, right? Yeah. So and if you were to start it, this is sort of what to think about. So the right time to start is very individual. It depends on who you are, what's going on in your gut, where you are, how reactive you are to things. Your level of tolerance is huge. So talking with your provider about any questions or concerns about that. And consider, like we were saying, consider starting with a single strain, and you can go super, super slow onboarding that. So I would start, if it was me, and I was super sensitive, I would consider starting with a tiny, so you can open the capsule, start with a tiny sprinkle, put a little bit in water or food, but with your food might be maybe the way, if it's something you're used to eating, your gut's kind of like, oh, okay, it's okay. It's going to help with the tolerance piece. So going really slow with that and giving yourself even like 4 to 6 weeks to work up to a full capsule and go slow, and paying attention to symptoms, because you might come to a point where, say, like a half capsule or a quarter capsule is okay, but a full capsule is too much, and it's okay to kind of back down to where you tolerate, and staying within tolerance is huge.
Yeah, and Sally saying thank you. I'm very sensitive. So, Sally, if you are going to start one, being really sensitive, this is kind of how you can start it. We're going to go into a little bit more about like maybe some of the ones too to consider, like the ones that we recommend in the clinic. But just if you're kind of unsure if you should even start one, working with somebody one-on-one to see where you are in your journey can be really helpful to kind of decide, are you actually ready for that probiotic, or are there things that you should be working on prior to adding that in? So that, again, just one of the things that we offer is one-on-one support in our remote health consulting clinic. So you can learn more about that at mastcell360.com/application to see if you're kind of feeling a little bit lost on whether or not you should even start one. We can definitely go into that with you.
She's saying she's had
one thing. Yeah. I'm thinking that one of the questions that people ask a lot of is, how am I going to know if I'm not tolerating something? And this is where I think one of the things that we try to do in our program is to identify the symptoms that are showing you that you're not tolerating something. And especially around mast cells, there's usually a cluster of symptoms, or there's a progression that you go through. Maybe you start with a headache, and then you go to numbness and tingling, and then this and this, and as it gets more severe, more symptoms. And you put that symptom complex, and those are your warning signs. So if you start ramping something up and you see those symptoms starting to come up, you back off. And you're just aware of that, and that can help you in starting any of these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Knowing your symptom. And it's like, once you start to take away something, like you're changing your environment, you take away some of those symptoms become more obvious when you start to onboard something. Yeah.
Yeah. And we see all the time, clients who are in like a constant flare, but then have like a really big flare on top of it. So they're used to that really big flare, but they're miserable all of the time. And so we kind of have to work with them to figure out what those triggers are. And if we could start removing some of those triggers, like Kimberly was saying, you get a new baseline, and then you start to see what is actually causing those symptoms.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go to the next slide for you.
So what are some top picks for probiotics to try? So Saccharomyces boulardii, I saw Sally talk a little bit about having yeast infections. So that's Candida overgrowth. So Saccharomyces boulardii can be a good one that can help there. So it's been shown also to support DAO production, and DAO is so important for histamine because that's the enzyme in the gut that breaks down histamine. So supporting that is great. So it can help balance the other yeast in the guts, like I was talking about, because it's a pro yeast. So Candida can kind of quiet down if you have a lot of Candida overgrowth. I would go slowly with it. And it binds ochratoxin A, which is a mycotoxin, gliotoxins, sterigomidosicin, I'm sorry, I'm butchering that one, and zearalenone. So those are definitely binders that we use. Those are mycotoxin binders. So it can actually help with the multi-tox piece.
Yeah.
And some clients, if they're really sensitive to onboarding the other binders, I will start with like a Saccharomyces boulardii. If they're able to.
Asking if it's okay for people exposed to mycotoxins. I'm assuming SB, since we were kind of talking about that. SB stands for Saccharomyces boulardii. Yes. So yes, we actually use it as a binder, like Kimberly just said.
We use it as a binder, but I would go slow, right, to see how you do, to see how you tolerate it, because some people are very sensitive to anything yeast-based from an immune standpoint because of the mold. So just going slow.
Also, one thing with Saccharomyces, because it's a binder, you have to be in a stable position to be able to even onboard something like that, as opposed to some of the other probiotics. So if you're going to be binding up toxins, well, then you have to be able to tolerate that increased toxin burden coming from your cells. And oftentimes we would wait until people are in a more stable position before starting something like a Saccharomyces.
Yeah, it depends on where you are in the journey. So Bacillus coagulans, one Alex talked a bit about, but it's a spore-based probiotic, may help balance the microbiome, balance the immune system, reduce inflammation overall, which is huge, improve digestion, help in gut repair, lower cholesterol. I know that's one of the things we see quite a bit is the higher cholesterol with the mold toxicity. And B coagulans may also help bind aflatoxin, which is a mycotoxin as well, and is generally well tolerated with SIBO. So your spore-based probiotics may be one of the places you could start with a single Bacillus coagulans. And then this is another one, Thyroid by Claire Labs, is a combo Bacillus coagulans and Bacillus subtilis. So like other spore-based probiotics, it may help reduce, support the beneficial bacteria, reduce pathogens, balance the immune system, lower oxidative stress, improve gut lining and repair, may also act as a binder for some mycotoxin, and is generally well tolerated with SIBO. That's one I took for years myself when I had SIBO. Some others. So top picks for probiotics. When you're ready for a probiotic blend with more strains, so generally that's later, if you handled some of the single strains well, you can look for supplements that contain the histamine-lowering probiotics we discussed earlier, starting low and slow like we discussed. And most people do not want to start with multi-strain blends. And that is definitely covered in our blog article on that. So that's listed there. If you want to join them, check that out. And then the other one you might want to think about is like a paraprobiotic, something like Holoimmune. That's one. It is it's heat treated and inactive, but can really be supportive for immune balancing. So they provide health benefits without containing live organisms, so they're gentler on the system. So if you're super sensitive, this one can be super supportive. I see it really helpful for immune health and rebalancing the Th1 and Th2. So immune signaling is what it does, and it helps modulate over and under active immune responses. And so our favorite paraprobiotic is Holoimmune by the Healthy Gut Company. It's a really gentle gut immune health support, helps modulate the immune responses without colonizing or overstimulating your immune system. And that can be key for a lot of people. Generally easier to tolerate, especially those with mast cell, histamine intolerance, imbalanced immune function. And it's specifically chosen probiotic strains plus a little bit of beta glucans.
Okay. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing all of that. Just a reminder for live Q&As, we obviously have some questions already coming in, but if you have a question regarding probiotics and mast cell activation syndrome, today is your day to ask those. Please keep your questions on the topic of today's show. And please understand we're unable to answer in-depth personal health questions. So depending on how your question, we'll try to answer it as best as we can, or generally if we're unable to. And then, yes, please just keep submitting your questions. Only submit it one time. It helps us keep track of those coming in. Okay. So Naveed is asking if low on Bifidobacterium, what could that mean? Alex or Kimberly, would you like to take that?
I see Bifidobacterium as one of the main beneficial bacteria. And so it's very important to have that. Now, luckily, many of the Bifidobacterium are low histamine and mast cell protective. So you could start with something like a Bifidobacter product. Now, if you could do multi-strain, now I'm blanking on the one from Seeking Health,
Histamine X.
Histamine X, that gives you a certain number of the bifidus, but you can find single ones as well, and those are very important to the microbiome.
Yeah, and that's kind of just telling us that terrain is off there, right? If it's one that should be there and it's not there, and it's just telling us that the terrain is off, and I'd be looking further upstream for what's disturbing the terrain.
Yeah, so like thinking about how you're digesting your food, you mean like digestive enzymes or stomach acid supplement, things like that?
It could be that plus your environment, right? The mold piece, yeah.
Okay, Kristen's asking, are the lactobacillus levels in a store-bought Greek yogurt high enough to be causing problems, or can I make yogurt using these suggested probiotics?
So I have seen people react to yogurts for sure. Also cottage cheese, beware, like the Good brand, and there's some that's called Good, and there's some other brands out there that you don't think about sometimes that they're going to have, but they add the probiotics to them, and that can get you if you have the histamine intolerance piece. So yeah, we generally see yogurt as a higher histamine food that people temporarily need to stop when you have mast cell and histamine. And after you work through the detox and the gut piece and all of that, you may be able to have it on the other side. So it just depends on your own histamine intolerance, right? If you'd be able to handle that.
And you could always experiment with creating your own using the low probiotic strains as well, if you can.
Yeah, maybe using a single strain, right? Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Barbara is asking, I'm going to throw this up here, but we may need some clarification, Barbara. Will this interfere with thyroid function or thyroid medication? So I'm not quite sure specifically what you mean by this, because it came in, I'm not sure when your question came in regarding what we were discussing at the moment. So if you can just give us a little bit of clarification, or if Kimberly or Alex have anything in general regarding probiotics and thyroid. Personally, having Hashimoto's and celiac disease, when we work on the gut, and Hashimoto's is a autoimmune condition more so than thyroid specific, but right when we work on the gut, which is where most of our immune system is, the thyroid will improve. And so yes, we do want to have some level of support there, but I'll wait to see. Oh
yeah, well, in general, probiotic are not going to interfere with like the absorption of your medication. And I don't know specifically how it affects like Hashimoto's, but you can take it and still absorb your medication and not have it changed in any way.
Yeah. I have Hashimoto's as well. And yeah, was on both probiotics and my medicine. Didn't take them at the same time. So that's key with the thyroid med, right? Taking it first thing in the morning away from everything. I waited at least a half hour before I check anything else, but that's always a wise thing to do with thyroid meds.
Okay, Andrea's saying, what about Akkermansia? Metagenics is the brand that she's doing. There's a live version pendulum that she hasn't tried.
Yeah, Akkermansia has come into the fore. It's one of the bacteria that is measured with the DNA probes used in a lot of the stool cultures, the stool testing that is available now. And it has a lot to do with gut barrier function. So it helps to maintain the integrity of your gut. So it can be very helpful for leaky gut. It also reduces inflammation. It can be helpful for sugar metabolism and things like that. I haven't yet myself recommended it very often because it seems to be kind of like, for many of the things we're doing, it's farther down the priority list. Okay, it's below getting your nervous system back functioning. It's below getting your mast cells calmed down, making sure that you're digesting your food properly, and some of those parameters. But others might have other ideas too.
Yeah, I know Akkermansia doesn't hang around long. So if the terrain is not right, it's not going to hang around long. And what I worry about is it can be a very expensive supplement too, especially since it's kind of trending. So I'm wondering if it would not hang around if the terrain was still off, where we hadn't worked through the detox and things like that. So it depends on who you are and where you are in the journey. But yeah.
So we're getting a lot of questions about specific products. VSL number 3, is that a good probiotic? So Kimberly or Alex, are you familiar with this one?
I'm familiar with VSL. Actually, they used to have VSL 1, 2. Yeah. So I can't remember the strains that are in it. Is it a good probiotic? Yes. Is it a good probiotic for you? It's hard to know.
Yeah, and so definitely going and cross-checking it with probably with our probiotic blog, right? So checking what strains are in your current product if you are on a probiotic, and deciding, are you struggling with mast cell histamine symptoms? You're here today, so there's high probability that you're experiencing something going on that you're learning to educate and empower yourself on. And so using that blog as an educational tool, see if the current probiotic you're on has the higher histamine strains. If it does, you can always experiment with going off. And then, of course, as Kimberly said, is it the right one for you? Is there a different one? Should you go off all probiotics and work on the terrain piece? That's, again, where working with someone one-on-one can help.
I know in the past, I haven't looked at VSL3 in a little while, but they made it very difficult to find out what strains were in there. They considered that kind of proprietary, even what the strains were. But as I recall, there were definitely high histamine strains. The other thing is the VSL3 is a very potent. You're talking about 500 billion colony forming units. Sometimes there's a double strength, which would be a trillion. But if you've been tolerating it for 10 years, I would say that you don't necessarily have to stop that, but it might be worth checking out to see how you feel off of it for a temporary period of time to see if it may be activating some of the histamine or mast cells in your body.
Is cocoa June yogurt also high histamine, or coconut yogurt? Yeah, so anything fermented has the potential to be higher histamine. I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with this brand. I just don't know if they list what strains it's made with. So you'd have to maybe contact them if it's not listed on the container and find out what strains. All right. Again, another probiotic. This is actually one that we recommend in the clinic. So
I personally like MegaSpore, but I didn't start there for sure. It's a MegaSpore, right? So that's a lot. So if you're someone who doesn't have a probiotic on or don't know how you do, that's where you would start with the single strain kinds and see how you do with it before you add MegaSpore. But MegaSpore is excellent and one that I use, but I wouldn't have started there for sure.
I just looked up the last question about the coconut one, and there's Lactobacillus tobruchi, Bulgaricus, Thermophilus, Acidophilus. So I would say that that's a fairly high histamine yogurt.
Yeah, most yogurts will be coconut or not.
Okay, next question. What to do when you've had to take too many antibiotics and almost everything you eat is causing diarrhea?
Yeah. That's very individual, right? Kind of what's going on with her gut and why did you take the antibiotics, and kind of looking, that's very much seems like it would be a very personal.
Yeah, it is pretty personal. The original articles came out in the late 90s on using probiotics, and they studied it for antibiotics. They studied it for in pediatric populations that had gastroenteritis, and they found that Culturelle, which is Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, definitely was beneficial. Now, that one is not going to raise your histamine levels. So I would think that if you wanted to try something to initiate, you could try the Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG. Culturelle is one of the products. There's also one by Pure Encapsulations called Pure GG, and that might be a start.
Yeah, or Saccharomyces boulardii is really great for rebalancing post antibiotics.
Okay. Barbara's asking, are any of your products safe? So I'm assuming the ones that we had recommended, safe for those with reactive hypoglycemia and nighttime lows?
Yeah, I don't see it affecting it. I mean, that's a bigger, it seems like an off-topic question.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Well, I think it was what was the one? There was one that was helping for, the Akkermansia was known to help balance blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one that you might be able to think about.
Yeah, kind of looking at, what's going on at the level of why that blood sugar is low to begin with.
That's what I would look at. Yeah.
Okay. Noreen's asking which probiotic brand for people with multiple chemical sensitivities. So kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, Noreen, how to start a probiotic, and then reading the blog post. Mast Cell 360 we specialize in people with really sensitive systems. And so, typically looking at that multiple chemical sensitivity kind of falls under, triggers of MCAS. So I would say, this is personalized. We don't know enough about your case too to say which one would be best for you as an individual.
I've seen multiple chemical sensitivities as oftentimes a byproduct of mold toxicity, which is mast cell stimulating. And so, some of the ones that we're talking about that would be safe for mast cell I think would be very good for chemical sensitivities, and staying away from the high histamine ones.
Again, Abby, I don't know unless Alex or Kimberly is familiar with this one. I really suggest going and looking at the strains in it and against the blog post to find out whether or not there's high or low histamine strains.
So CellCore has some great products, but I find that they're usually too strong for most people with mast cell. And they're usually multiple, not just the Biotic, right? But also some of their other products are just very, very strong in terms of detox. So my guess is it's probably a little bit strong, but I would take that, look at online and then kind of compare it against the article. But my guess is it's a little bit too histamine stimulating, perhaps.
I'm looking at it here. It has a lot of the ones that we're suggesting, but it also has acidophilus, Lactobacillus acidophilus. It's got Lactobacillus reuteri, which I'm not really sure about. And then a bunch of them that look in the plantarum. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Plus it has humic shale in it. So it's got a lot of stuff.
All right. Looks like this might be one of our last questions. If doing Xifaxan, I can never pronounce these. Will that negate probiotics, or does it only work on bad bugs? So,
well, this is a very interesting drug, and it has certain benefits that other antibiotics don't have. Number one, it's not absorbed from the gut, and so you're not going to get systemic effects. If you get a headache or you get numbness and tingling or dizzy, that's because of the die-off of the germs, not from the medication itself. The other thing that's amazing is that it generally is metabolized before it gets to the colon. Now, 99.9% of your bacteria are in the colon. So theoretically, this does not kill a lot of good bacteria. It's clearing out the bacteria in the small intestine.
That's also known as rifaximin, right?
Yeah.
That's typically used for SIBO with some practitioners.
Yeah, especially the high hydrogen SIBO. Well, it's used in both, but you need more if you have methane as well as hydrogen.
Okay. So along the lines of antibiotics, so I think people are kind of thinking like most people, if they have to be on an antibiotic, they're going to want a probiotic to repopulate. So again, this is going to be highly individualized. Like, do you need the antibiotic, and what are you treating with the antibiotic? But then also, using some of these low ones 2 hours away from. So a lot of people, can take them simultaneously, just away from each other. So Alex, I'll let you kind of go into any more detail on that if you'd like.
Yeah, this question is really difficult because basically with an antibiotic, you're trying to choose what organism you're trying to eradicate. And so you might have a probiotic like azithromycin, which is fairly narrow, meaning that it doesn't kill huge swaths of bacteria, but it may not be the right bacteria, might not be the right agent for what you have. And so it's much more important that you make sure that you know what you're looking at. Okay. And for instance, with UTIs, nitrofurantoin would be a fairly narrow band antibiotic. And for some people, that's great. But if you've got a sulfa allergy, well, that's not going to work at all. So I think that that question is really difficult.
Yeah. And I would caution against using flux drugs when we can, right? Just because of the link to EDS and hypermobility. And if you don't know, that's like a Cipro or something like that, just because we have seen people damaged by those kinds of, or they call it floxing, by some of those drugs, if it's a hidden thing that maybe you don't know you have. I mean, sometimes you can't avoid it, but sometimes there's other options you can try and ask your provider or your prescriber, are there other options here for me because I'm concerned about this drug. I think that's always a good thing to do, to advocate.
That's a really important point, Kim. I think that there's a condition called fluoroquinolone-associated disorder, which is not just the tendon problems that are reported sometimes with Cipro, Levaquin, moxifloxacin. There's a whole list of them. And they can be very disruptive to your mitochondria and cause long-term damage. Now, if you've got a life-threatening condition, that's one thing. But if you're using it for a UTI or a sinus infection, there's usually a lot of other choices that you can use before you need a fluoroquinolone.
Yeah. I ran into this personally a couple of years ago where I had it was a tested UTI, and the only option was Cipro. I did not want to go there. That's when I used Chunka Piedra to flush the kidneys to see if I could clear it, because it wasn't a severe infection at the time yet, right? So I used Chunka Piedra to do a bit of a kidney flush, and I was able to flush it and completely within 2 weeks gone. Yeah.
Okay. We just all right. So Wendy, I want to point you back to the beginning when we did talk about Saccharomyces boulardii. You can probably read more about it on the blog. Mentioned that we use it as a binder. So, and then also,
I can also say to her, it's pretty typical. I see people use it, when after you have an antibiotic to take the Saccharomyces boulardii, and the reason being is, right, you're bringing down the bacterial load. It can leave room for bad yeast to grow and bad bacteria. So that Saccharomyces boulardii could be supportive of kind of crowding out, because it's a positive pro yeast, crowding out the bad guys so that you don't have overgrowths that are opportunistic after those antibiotics. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I all of a sudden got blipped off, but
Alex disappeared. What did I say?
The Saccharomyces in terms of prevention of C. difficile when you're taking antibiotics.
She's just saying when we mentioned Saccharomyces boulardii after antibiotics, how might it help? And I was just saying, I feel like it can sort of support the terrain a little bit, right? Because huge opportunity when you've killed a bunch off for the stronger ones to come up. And I feel like the Saccharomyces boulardii can certainly kind of help that from happening.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I see somebody saying it made her much worse. And I have seen that as well. Some of us are super, super sensitive to yeast, or have some other overgrowths going on, fungally going on. And for some people, it's not a good choice. So that's where it's very individual, kind of like, if it's not for you right now, it doesn't mean it's not for you forever. It might have been at that point in time, how your gut was balanced and what was going on in your body at the time.
Yeah, it's one of the things that makes this difficult, because it's very hard to have universal recommendations. There's always a proviso. that may help and may not. Now, most of these things that we're suggesting would be tolerated by many or most people, but you all have to realize that a lot of the people we see are not the usual people. They're kind of outside that box of this always works, or it's always helpful. So one of the things that we recommend is going slow with it, so that you don't find out that you're one of the people that don't tolerate it.
The hard way, right? It's easier to back out of, like, if you've taken a few sprinkles, you might have a not so great day versus not having not so great weeks is the difference. Yeah.
Okay, last question. Does Ion Gut Support, which has humic soil, have probiotics in it? So it does not have probiotics in it. Earlier, Alex, it's not one that we recommend a ton in the clinic, but it can be beneficial for some clients and here or there, and also really good for glyphosate detox.
Yeah, that's when we're usually recommending it, is as something like a glyphosate or some kind of environmental toxicity piece to help kind of clean that up with the humic, plus the little bit of minerals and things in it. But yeah, it's a multi ingredient product for sure.
Okay. And then Marcia just threw one in there for us. Do you wait until after probiotics, after antibiotics, probiotics? So you can use them simultaneously, but you want to spread them at least 2 hours apart.
And for the Saccharomyces, because it's a yeast, you need to avoid that within 2 hours of an antifungal medication.
Good point. Okay. That looks like it for our questions, and we're almost at time anyway. So just want to throw this up here real quick for those. I know people come on at different times and are catching up. If you want to prioritize your health for the holidays, you can work with us in 2 different tiers of support. Right now, we have strategy sessions, which is like typically a one-time consultation to kind of give you those real actionable next steps to see kind of where you are in your healing journey, or our advanced track, which is more long-term, big picture protocol. We're working with Alex and Kimberly, as well as health coaching support there. So you can find out how to work with us at mastcell360.com/application. Just a reminder, we do have some openings in November and December. So if you're looking to maybe gift yourself the gift of health, don't be afraid to. And then also our other big announcement is that we are now on Substack. And so, like I mentioned at the beginning of today's show, there's 3 different tiers that you can engage with us on Substack. And you can learn more about that at mastcell360.com. mastcell360.substack.com. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. Alex and Kimberly, any parting words?
I guess I would say don't see probiotics as the one thing, like the one thing that's going to fix everything. It's a part of a whole picture of what you're doing, like a whole protocol. So sometimes like people are like, oh, if I just get on probiotics, it's going to fix my gut. And it's usually because of a lot of dysbiosis going on. So slow and steady. And yeah, don't get hung up on like, if I take this one probiotic, it's going to fix everything in my gut, because it's a bit of a journey.
Yeah, I would dovetail with that. I used to think of probiotics as like seeding your garden or seeding your lawn in the spring, and I've come to realize that there are positives and negatives, and to just be very selective, and think about what you're doing. Start slow with single agents, move up slowly, and find someone who can help guide you with some of this, because you'll react to certain things and they might be able to help you know why. Change to something that you could tolerate.
Yeah. Jamie, I saw somebody asking about what Substack is. Oh
yeah, so Substack is a social platform. It is kind of like an Instagram in the sense that you can share notes and threads and things like that. But it's more robust, and you kind of have two ways you can view it. We're going to have one that looks, if you go to the website listed on this screen, mastcell360.substack.com, you'll see it will kind of pop up like a website. And then it just links out to our actual website. So it's one way that you can search for like our resources all in one spot. So there will be, the best thing I can do is just say, go check it out, subscribe. Like I said, there's a free one. You can always upgrade later if you're not sure about whether or not you will use this resource, but it's a new way to interact with the resources that we've been putting out for you guys. And if you aren't on our email list, when you do sign up, even with the free one, you'll start getting our emails as well. So it's a quick way to kind of stay up to date with what's happening at Mast Cell 360. Is there anything else? Let's see. All right. Okay, everyone. We will see you next week, and have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.